Right now, we're in the middle of the bull cycle, and more than ever, it's time for you to pay attention to some of the most exciting projects where you can actually take your game to the next level. So I'm going to cover some of the top projects that I'm looking out for right now and what's going on in the NFT space. All right, first thing we got to cover is what's going on in the market, right? So as you can see at the time of this recording, Bitcoin kind of dumped a little bit over the past 7 days, right? We're at that 7.1K and all the way down to what, like 6.5. And because there's a drawdown with Bitcoin, everything else is kind of going to go down as well. Ethereum's going to go down, as well as a lot of the other alternative coins. And typically when things go down, you know, the more riskier your play, the smaller your market cap, whether it's an NFT or a token, those are going to go down even harder. So you really want to be careful if you are investing into, let's say, a lot of memes, for example, right? Because those technically have no value. It's really just a game of how high can it go and how high can you sell. You really got to be careful here. So the first project we're going to cover is going to be Anime Coin, which was just announced recently. So if you go on the website anime.xyz, you're going to see that they are defining the next generation of anime. Now, Anime Coin is going to be a collaboration between Azuki and Arbitrum. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my thoughts. The first question is, why is Azuki launching a coin with Arbitrum instead of doing it themselves? My speculation, right, and it's just speculation, is that when you're a US team and you are a US citizen, there are certain restrictions on what you can do when it comes to tokens, which is why you see projects like Memeland, for example, and a lot of projects coming out of Hong Kong. So we have Memeland, we have we have more projects like this where they know that their special advantage is that there's more looser regulations when it comes to token offerings, right? Whereas if you're a US citizen, you cannot just offer a token like that, similar to how, you know, Hong Kong people can, or Singaporean people can, or people in different parts of the world. And so my guess is that because the team is, you know, US based, they have to follow certain rules. They're not willing to risk the battle with the SEC to define whether or not this is security. That's my guess, right? And so by collaborating with another project, they can be contributors of this project, not necessarily the founders, because there are no founders, right? And so a lot of these things come into play when it comes to launching a token, especially considering where the team is from. So Anime Coin technically is on a layer 2, which is Arbitrum. Arbitrum is actually a layer 2, which is built on top of Ethereum, right? It's like a scaling solution for Ethereum. Now, Azuki is building with Arbitrum, which is on a layer 2. So would that make Azuki a layer 3, or is it a parallel? Really hard to say, right? But then that's a very interesting use case where you already have a layer 2 and another person builds a coin on top of that. Another really interesting example of that is this other project called Zai. Zai is kind of like blockchain gaming, and they are leveraging the Arbitrum technology, right? So is it considered a layer 3? What is a layer 3? I mean, it's kind of like a new narrative, I feel. Zai would be considered a layer 3 blockchain, right? And so I guess Azuki's maybe following a similar path. It's very unclear. There's all a mystique and mystery behind it, but essentially that's kind of what it is from a technology perspective. Now, what is Anime Coin going to do? My guess is that Anime Coin is kind of like an ecosystem for anime projects to build on top of. They're probably going to raise a lot of money. They're going to have a big treasury, and most likely they're going to give away grants for people to build on top of their chain, whether it's for gaming, things that are related to Azuki, people creating new IPs, and they can give those grants to get more transaction volume on their chain. So it's basically a different narrative to convince people to build on top of their chain, just like how IMX, you know, for example, would be the gaming chain of layer 2. So if you're a game, come over to IMX. Or Portal is basically the same thing as IMX, which is Ethereum layer 2 chain where they want games on it, right? So this Anime Coin is probably, hey, if you're building an anime IP project, anime game, anime trading cards, collectibles, why not build on Anime Coin and we will give you a grant? So it's all about the grant to build those ecosystems, and if they give enough grants, people will come in, and maybe there's going to be a lot of volume. People speculate on that volume, thinking they're going to 10x their money, and then you have an ecosystem that is built from thin air, right? Could this be big? Possibly, because anime is one of the hottest markets when it comes to NFTs. That's why you see so many anime PFPs popping off, and so this is something definitely to watch. And if you want to get started, they have a get started button here. You got to connect your Twitter and things like that. So they're probably going to have some kind of point system where the more you engage, the more you do things, you know, kind of like grinding, maybe the more points that you get, right? So Anime Coin is something that is kind of interesting, so definitely check that out. Now let's talk about some Bitcoin projects, right? Bitcoin Ordinal has definitely been on my map over the past couple months, and this new project that I recently found just randomly on Twitter is called Bitcoin Jurassic. Why I thought it was interesting is that the art is very charming. I have no relation to this. I have no idea who the team is, to be honest. But when I saw this, you know, just from a branding perspective, whoever's doing the creative direction is actually doing a pretty good job, because they're making a big impact with very little assets, right? Nothing crazy from a technical perspective, but the way they put it together is really good. They got this whole story with Bob the miner who's like lost. So, you know, these kind of things is interesting because as a speculator or potential buyer of Bitcoin ordinals, right? It's kind of like I'm looking for people that can create charming things, something new that's not just a pure derivative, but they're actually innovating in some way. And because in Bitcoin ordinals, a lot of people kind of copy like Node monkeys, or they copied basically whatever art was popular in the beginning. People just create derivatives of that because it's easier. But when someone tries to do something more innovative, something new, something that hasn't been done on that chain, it may have been done on Ethereum, but bringing it onto Bitcoin, that's interesting to me. And so that's why I feel this project is kind of sick. You know, like it's a very simple concept. I feel like there's gonna attract an audience for it, and the effort and creativity is actually there. So yeah, man, check out Bitcoin Jurassic. You know, there's not much information about it. You know, join their Discord, I suppose, but that's it. Let's talk about another project that I saw, which is going to be Saku Monsters, right? So Saku Monsters is kind of like a game that's in the App Store already. So if you want to download it, you can definitely check that out. They're trying to be like a combination of Tamagotchi and Pokemon. They're not saying which blockchain they're going for. Probably is they're fishing for grants, is my guess, right? So they just released that, hey, you know, they're looking at different options. And then in the end, they chose Solana to be the chain of choice, right? Which is interesting because I feel like each of these chains are giving away grants for projects like this. So they probably got the best deal from Solana, or maybe they just like Solana, hard to say. But I think this project does kind of fit Solana in the whole theme there. What is this really? It's like Pokemon Tamagotchi, right? Like I'm not gonna get too into the details. I think there's other like gaming YouTubers that are gonna like play this game for an hour to show you what's up. You know, the whole idea of like this monster Tamagotchi kind of thing is interesting. That narrative alone is the narrative. And so because of that, I think people are just gonna buy it because the aesthetics, monster catching, Tamagotchi, reminiscence of 90s culture, those are all the things that kind of hit. Plus it's kind of like anime related, right? Just off of that, even if I had never even played the game, you know, people are just gonna buy it, and that's how the market works. So monster hunting, definitely there's gonna be a whole vein of projects like Pixelmon and, you know, Somo, right? Which we could talk about. You know, Saku Monsters are all gonna hit that target, right? Speaking of that, PlaySomo just released a teaser or trailer, and you know, I would say like Somo is one of the projects where it looks more higher quality, right? So if you watch the trailers, the music, the sound design, the way they do the graphics, it's actually pretty good, to be honest. You know, the way they're doing the marketing is kind of like how Pixelmon did theirs. It's like they'll take the character and then they'll just evolve it, and that's pretty much it. So you could argue that they, you know, take a lot of inspiration from Pixelmon, and that's totally okay. Of course, you know, with Unreal Engine 5, where it's more accessible more than ever to create high fidelity graphics, it becomes easier. So now it's all about like the creative direction and like putting all this together. But so far, in my opinion, you know, I have no relation to this, so I don't benefit at all, right? I feel like the team that is behind Somo, which is also behind Creeps, which is also behind Portal, what they're really good at is they are good at taking concepts that kind of already work and make money, and then they add a creative spin to it and add a layer of higher quality aesthetics, right? So you could argue Somo is kind of like Pixelmon. Pixelmon definitely came before Somo did, but they added their own creative spin to it, and now it's like this new thing. But what they did differently is they added a layer of aesthetics on top of that, and the technology could literally be the same, right? I don't know, but outside looking in from a narrative perspective, it does the same thing, but it's the aesthetic of how they put everything together that makes it cool, right? So if you go on the website, let's say you go on Portal Gaming, the website's looking good, the animations are looking good, a lot of things are looking pretty good, right? They're pretty good at, you know, wrapping ideas that work in aesthetics, right? And so that's why I think a lot of people might be bullish on this team, whether they realize it or not. You know, these design element choices are kind of influencing us to buy things subconsciously. So if you talk about all the things that we talked about today, right? Saku Monsters, Anime Coin, you know, you'll notice that they pay attention to aesthetics because the technology might be the same. They could even borrow technology from another chain like Arbitrum, right? But adding that layer of anime to it, adding that layer of like coolness to it, monster hunting to it, you know, that's what's going to make it different without having to invent a new technology. So definitely pay attention to that. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be Forbes. So Forbes is going to be launching an NFT. They've been onboarding a lot of people to this as well. So if you go on Forbes Legacy Pass, they're going to have a pass for 1917. That's probably the year that Forbes started, right? So that's what they did. The pass, pretty cool. So what does this pass do? I feel like it's just a club of people who are industry leaders, and they probably just reach out to whoever are influencers in the space and people that they know. So we got Zagabond, Ray Chan, Yatsul, so a lot of people actually. And of course, like Forbes is a business magazine that everybody knows, so why wouldn't you want to be involved and get that free exposure or get that exposure in some way? So this is something, just because all these people are going to be in it, it's probably something that's going to be in demand, right? Forbes probably will do events at NFT NYC one day in the future. If you want to meet Yatsul and you want to meet Zagabond and Pranksy and these guys, or maybe not Pranksy, he's more anonymous, but the other guys, you probably want to be a part of it, right? And so this is something you want to put on your radar. That's it. That's everything I want to cover in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and make sure to follow me on Twitter, because we're going to have some big announcements coming up real soon, maybe within the next month, who knows? So if you do want to follow me, make sure to follow me at Patrick Dang, turn on notifications, and I will see you next time.